And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, with Season 4, Episode 18, Maud Pie. The second episode Maud appears in, but the first episode she's really introduced in. It's all about her and how she's different. She's really into rocks. And she's really into her sister, but they don't quite make friends, but then they don't quite make friends, but then they really don't make friends, but then they make friends. The end. Meanwhile, my chat has spent the last 20 minutes arguing about, Sunset Someone and Starlight Glimmer, or Shimmer, or whatever her name is. Non-stop! Just arguing about it in the chat. I glance over. I go back to the episode. Take a few notes. Glance over. Look back at the episode. Because I have chat up when I'm watching these. I'm like, okay. I like Starlight. But we'll talk about that later. Because, well, we're not there yet. So, before I go any further, I want to say, this is another episode by a brand new writer, Noel Benvenuti. I'm not sure who that is. It is, as I mentioned, their first episode for this. And can I just say that they managed to nail it in a way that Mr. Scott Sonneborn did not. Just my opinion. I'm probably going to give this one a red. I'm just going to tell you that up front. But let's talk it back a bit. I want to explain part of the why. So let's go through this sequentially. To quote Spider-Verse one more time from the top. So Rainbow Dash is, as usual, a late sleeper. And Pinkie Pie is making rock candy. Now this is funny. The first thing I wrote down in my notes was, are they made of actual rocks? Because in real life, rock candy is made of sugar. Like there's a whole thing. You can make rock candy. It's actually really easy. You just need some sugar, and I don't know what else. You can look it up online, but it's a really simple thing. You leave it out to dry, and it forms crystals. Right? But then we cut away to break, and then we come back, and there's this bit where she actually mentions that Maud found a special kind of rock, which is the secret ingredient for the rock candy. Okay. I'm curious about that one. I wonder if she makes all of her rock candy with this special rock, whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot of kinds of rocks, which I'll talk more about in a minute. I love the crayon drawing background, like the storytelling with the crayons. That was actually pretty cool and neat. And she's so Maud is getting off to get her doctorate in rock studies, because I'm not sure what else you get a doctorate in. Lava? The difference between lava and magma? Oh. So I'm going to go ahead and add a continuity counter really quick here. They're having a pet playdate thing. You remember those? May the best pet win. The one that introduced Tank. And obviously all the pets are kind of a recurring thing. But you get the point. They're doing a pet playdate. It's the same kind of thing. And that's where they're at. Where they're going to be. And then we see Rarity. What's she wearing? Like, I've actually gushed more than once, because I do actually have an interest and a sense of fashion, about the fashion styles of quite a few of the things that she designs in this show. And yeah, I know there is that was the joke. And then she's wearing a giant, ugly, what do they call it, a bell-bottom hat or something like that? There's actually a term for that. It's like one of these things. Because that's a real style hat, with just random see-through rocks that are glued to it poorly. That's the kind of thing that I would make when I was 5, back when I didn't have a fashion sense. Rarity should be able to make way better than that. I'm confused by that. But let's move on. So, oh, by the way, how would I make a rock outfit? That's easy. Scale mail. Just with rocks instead of metal. Think about it. Like a whole kind of... You remember that outfit we were wearing for Ghost of Tsushima? Which had the scales? It was the dual outfit, right? When it was fully upgraded? Something like that, right? A little bit of a frill coming out, so there's an extra, like a slant over here at the shoulders. And then probably part of the dress is like a separate thing. And then there's just... Yeah, just something like that. There you go. Bam. Rock outfit. Done. Come on. Anyways. I get that that's the point. The whole point that the episode's trying to make is that it's so hard to relate to someone who has a hobby different than yours. I'm sure we all relate to that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to have a whole topic about that I want to talk about. So let's save that for a minute from now, and let's talk about the rest of the episode. So the way they introduce Maud is basically perfect. First of all, let's talk about something that I know I've done, and I in fact, I did this a couple days ago, and I'm sure most of you have done this in your life at some point in time. You like A. Maybe it's an episode. Maybe it's a movie. Maybe it's a game. Maybe it's a thing. Maybe it's a place you go to, a restaurant or a food. And so you overhype it to your friend. Not because it's just, oh my God, but because A, you really like it, so you're gushing about it, and B, because you want them to like it too. I would bet money that every single person listening to this has done that at least once in their lives. I fight against doing that because I know that overhyping something isn't going to work. But I still have that tendency, and like I said, I did that 2 days ago to my sister. She was playing through Dragon Quest Builders 2, and I accidentally hyped up a section of the game, and I didn't mean to do that, and I caught myself. But still, she was like, What are you talking about? I'm like, nothing. And she's like, there's something cool coming up. And I was like, no! Just tell me. Okay. Yep. So, naturally, Pinkie Pie way overhypes Maud. Of course she does. She loves Maud. She likes Maud, and she wants them to also like Maud. The exact same thing I just told you. Which brings me to the second reason why this is basically perfect. So after all this overhype, Maud very, very slowly walks forward. Now, this is going to sound like a strange thing to comment on, but there's a specific sense of timing, comedic timing specifically, when it comes to this kind of a joke. Because this is a joke. So, I've actually talked about this before. There's repetition. There's repetition for humor. There's repetition, okay, this is boring. There's repetition, okay, it's funny again. I've talked about this exact pattern several times before, and finding out where the exact repetition point is kind of hard to do. I think this episode does a really good job of hitting the second point. Basically, this isn't repetition, it's pacing, because it's just the slow walk. But you'll notice if Maud had actually moved at her full speed, at the speed she was going at, and we saw the whole thing, it would probably have been about 30-ish seconds longer, which would have been too long, but not long enough to be funny again. So instead they truncate that. We see her walking over, and then she basically teleports forward for the next shot where she's going down the hill, and then she basically teleports forward for the next shot where she leans down and sniffs the rock. So it's repetitive to be funny, but not too repetitive to be boring. Again, I know that's a weird thing to comment on, but that kind of timing is a lot harder to learn than it sounds, and they did a really good job nailing it, so I wanted to give credit where credit is due. I have no idea act. So, she's introduced, and she goes down, and she immediately notices the rock. And then we hear her speak. I got the actress's page. She hasn't done much that I'm aware of. Her name is Ingrid Nilsson. She's obviously known for voicing Maud. She also voices Limestone Pie and Marble Pie. So, she's 3 of the Pie sisters. And she's also in a bunch of other stuff that I don't recognize. Most of it is... like Strawberry Shortcake, or Barbie in Rocks and Royals, or Littlest Pet Shop. I don't know what these are. The only thing I even come close to recognizing is Trinity Souls of Zilol, which is a video game which came out like 9 years ago, which most people probably never even heard of. But anyways, nevertheless, she does a very good job of Maud, in my opinion. She basically voices a Vulcan. And as I've talked about many times, it's actually really hard to play a Vulcan. Because most people, if I approach just about anyone on the street and says, play a Vulcan, and they know what I mean, what they will most likely do is they will sound boring. Because they will try to sap all the emotion from their perspective, and they will fail at it, and they will and it will just come across as bland. It is very difficult to come across as Vulcan, because a Vulcan isn't bland. They are precise. They are controlled. They are completely under a specific mentality that has to be presented and there needs to be tonality. And you'll notice how I'm varying how I'm speaking with both pacing and in terms of my actual tone. This is how a Vulcan speaks. I'm not being emotional. This is all very under control. It's hard to do. It's a hard thing to do. And it takes a specific mindset. Yes, Spock does not sound boring, you know? It's actually an issue that a lot of Enterprise actors had, because they were told to be emotionless, so what they did was they kind of came across like this. And what ended up happening is their voices basically became a monotone drawl. Perhaps you should... And that's not Vulcan. So, again, praise to Maud. She comes across as Vulcan, which is hard to do, and something that I like in general. Yeah, Tuvok is actually probably my favorite full-blooded Vulcan, just off the top of my head. Although Sarek is another excellent example, but, you know. So, you'll notice I'm really digging into this episode. I feel like there's a lot to talk about here, so please forgive me. This is probably going to be a long one, but I really do like how they present Maud. A lot of time and effort was put onto the presentation of her, and that's important. Because a character like this could come across as boring and awkward very easily. If she was worse voice acted, and if the story was not as well constructed, Maud would be boring, just like a lot of Enterprise Vulcans were. So, I know, right? Tuvok has plenty of sarcasm. And should! He's a Vulcan! Anyways. So, she's introduced. Notice that they also go out of their way to remove the music. This is actually a very key thing that... I've talked before about the concept of no music. No music is when you remove the music and it's a bad thing, because it kind of hurts the scene. Here they remove the music as a tool to emphasize the kind of awkward... which I'm sure several of us have experienced in real life before. So, naturally, someone like Maud would stand out amongst the group of the main six. Why? Well, think about this for a second. The main six are bubbly. All of them. They're in different ways. They have distinct and unique personalities, but all of them have that kind of bright, chipper, almost extroverted... Extrovert's the wrong word. There is an energy and shine to the way that they speak and talk. Open's a good word for that. And of course it is, because these were originally designed to be kid characters for a kid's show, and that means you need to have things that have energy to them. It does. You do need energy in order to catch a kid's attention. That's just kind of how that works. Maud is the exact opposite of that. So obviously she stands out. I mean, if you think about it, most of the cast of MLP, like across the board, never mind just the main six, are far more open than Maud, who is far more of a closed box. Then they keep trying to reach out to her and failing at it. So what does the dress speak to you? It doesn't speak, it's a dress. Now you'll notice they actually gave Maud an expression there like, why would my dress be talking? I only point that out because, again, she's not being bland for bland's sake. She's legitimately not getting the point. Like, my dress doesn't talk. Why would it? Hello? Except she doesn't say it that way, of course. And Fluttershy is like, oh my god, you have a pocket pet. That's so adorable. Did you notice Angel getting more jealous as that scene went on? It's just like a few seconds in the corner, but Angel's like, as she's like, oh, it's so adorable and cute. No, it's a rock. Of course it's a rock. And naturally she takes a rock from Rarity's hat to eat, because of course she does. And I believe this is the first time we've actually seen a pony, an Earth pony, of course, eat a rock. As we will find out later, Earth ponies do actually have the ability to eat rocks. Kind of gross, but I kind of get it. Yeah, Harity. What up? Shut up. I saw that act. She kind of shoves Boulder to the sandwich, and then the sandwich was gone in the subsequent scene. Just a nice little thing there. Yeah, Earth ponies are still magical creatures, exactly, Weods. And this episode is probably the biggest episode to really establish that. Although I've been paying attention, this is the second episode to really establish that in-universe on screen. And as I've mentioned before, the last time it brought up, because I brought it up then too, this will become very self-apparent when we get to the end of Season 4, where it's actually a plot point. But anyways, So once again, earth ponies are actually magical and super strong and fast. But I'll talk more about that in a minute, because what I want to talk about now is rocks. Because next they play hide and seek with rocks. It's like hide and seek, but way more intense. Because it has to do with rocks. Alright. I am about to play a clip from ProZD. He's a YouTuber. Please don't copyright me, but I really feel you need to hear this in order to understand the point I'm about to make.
Water's refreshing.
So, that's before you discover a subreddit for a hobby. After you discover a subreddit for a hobby...
I usually like to ensure the pH of the water is strictly 7, sometimes 8 if I'm feeling a little more alkaline. Anything 6 or below is a no-go. I check the acidity with an electronic pH meter just to be sure. You want a nice, crisp, balanced flavor, so no Dasani. I'd recommend Aquafina for a beginner's water if you must go bottled, but honestly, room temperature tap water through a filter is the way to go. Then you get all the minerals. Now, glass shape is important. You can either go tall or you can go wide. We call them verties or hories, vertical or horizontal. I like to go with a hory because I really want to see the water between sips. I think looking at it is half the pleasure. I also always do throat massages and exercises to make sure you get maximum travel velocity down the throat. Where are you going?
Now, as always, ProZD nails it, as he always does. But that's true. That is extreme hobbyist. I've actually talked about this concept several times before. I have met people who are that into their hobbies. Unironically, unjokingly. I'm sure you guys have met at least a few people in your lives who are too. This is the next topic I want to really talk about. Really being into something, one specific thing. Now, I don't understand that personally because I'm not into any one thing all that much. I don't go tall, I go wide. I'm into everything. If you name something, there's a pretty good chance I'm into it. Unless it's horror, anime, or, I guess that's it. Right? So like I said, I don't go tall. I don't really throw myself into one thing. I'm into a whole bunch of things. But I know people who are really into one thing. It's kind of a zero-sum game, basically. You can only put so much of your interest into so many things, right? You're funny. This is exactly how mod is portrayed here. And I know this sounds weird, but even though mod's obsession, if you want to call it that, with rocks, is portrayed for joking, I have seen people who are more into their hobby in real life than mod is into rocks. If anything, this actually seems completely believable to me. Really. Yes, although that's true in any strategy game, because that's a very common tactic. It's actually from economic terms, because you either build up one company super high so it's producing tons of money, or you try to produce a lot of different companies that are all contributing. It's the single pillar or the multiple pillars theory is what it's actually originally called. For example, my show is the multiple pillars theory. I don't focus on one thing, I focus on a bunch of things, right? But anyways, yeah, in strategy terms, go tall or go wide, and the same concept applies. Now, by the way, hi Chloe. So, she's really into rocks. I'm with that, as weird as that may sound, because one of the things I've discovered over my 37 years of life is that you could name just about anything, and there's someone somewhere who's really into that. Not like that. I mean like a hobby, right? Like rocks. Study of rocks is a real thing, actually. In fact, there are multiple studies of rocks. This is why I made that earlier joke about lava and magma. Because that's a thing. Because study of exactly how tectonic plates work and how that affects the surrounding terrain is a thing. Like, I've found too often that people tend to generalize things a little bit too much when it comes to that. You know, they think of people as scientists or geeks who are into science fiction. And while that's obviously true in many cases, you know, I am into science fiction, for example, there are so many gradients and layers of specific individual hobbies in that category. So I find it completely believable that Maud is really into rocks. Rocks isn't even that small of a category. That's still kind of a broad category on the list here. If she was specifically into I don't know the terms. The type of rock that specifically doesn't see the light of day, the kind of rocks that are broken down under the layer, you know, that would be more of a narrow individual kind of thing that I'm talking about. But she's into rocks in general, of which there are quite a variety, and we actually do see some decent variety over the course of Maud's appearances over the course of the show. Even history is actually an excellent example. I've actually talked about this before. I'm really into history, which is a very broad topic, but I discovered at a young age that you really, if you really want to know a specific point of history, you got to pick something, because you got to dig into that into such an extent that it's impossible to just dig into every moment in history. It's the Great War for me. I've talked about it many times. And I know several other people who are very much into Thermopylae and the area of the Peloponnesian Wars, or the First Roman Republic, or the Bronze Age collapse, or World War II Eastern Front, specifically one front of the Pacific Theater, or whatever, right? Or Constantinople in its various things, or Italian Renaissance, or the French Revolution, etc., etc. You get it. And I know this is a weird thing to comment on, but I really like how the show portrays her being into rocks. Because at no point do I feel like it's out of character, like in the previous episode, or weird. Actually, it sounds kind of cool to me, but I'm the boring guy who's into everything, so what the hell do I know? Except for anime and horror. Yeah, and it's not put in a bad light, which is also very important. That is definitely a lesson that kids and adults should learn, to be completely blunt. And yeah, she grew up on a friggin' rock farm, which brings me to my next point. Thank you, Weouds, for reminding me. She does a lot of things about rocks. Okay, that makes sense. You ever have to... How do I put this? You ever not have a lot of tools in your toolkit? I've actually used this analogy before, so forgive me for just borrowing it. You ever have to make do to pass the time when you're in a room with nothing? Or when you can't wake up the other people who are sleeping in the house? Or when you're stuck at home because there's a pandemic going on? I learned at an extremely young age what it's like to try and make my own entertainment and to keep my mind going when I had nothing. I've mentioned several times work on a farm. I still remember that farm to this day because I used to go play in that farm with dirt and leaves and sticks. I would just make stuff with them because that's what I had. This is why I pointed out that Weoud's point, she grew up on a rock farm, is so important, because that's what she had growing up. Rocks. And we make do with what we have when we have very limited tools in the toolkit. Now that she's an adult, she could probably broaden that if she wanted to, but again, she's obviously into rocks. So we've got the hobby angle, and we've got the limited creativity angle as well. Limited creativity sounds wrong. Creativity born from limitation. Let's put it that way. You know, people have often said you can do more when you have less, and there is a degree of validity to that. It's not always true. You know, make the new Star Wars film with twine and $5 isn't going to happen. But make a new science fiction, fantasy, cultural epic with a very limited budget and barely having any supporting or backing of any of the studios, which is what Star Wars was made under, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, me too, SA2K. So anyways, my point being, I told you I had a lot to talk about in this episode. From both angles, I think they do a good job of portraying her rock fixation. Even though it is being done as a gag, it is still being done properly. This is something I bang on about so often because it really bothers me when an episode of anything, of any show, basically has to ruin the character for the sake of a joke. You can still tell gags and have jokes, both visual and otherwise, while staying in character. This episode's a good example of that. And yeah, at no point is it mean-spirited either. It's, I can't think of the name. Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest. That is an excellent example of something that makes fun of, that's the wrong way to put it, that tells jokes about Star Trek fans without being mean-spirited. In fact, it's actually in many ways a celebration of Star Trek fandom. Anywho, moving on. So I've talked way too much about this point, so let's go ahead and move forward. I do actually have a lot. God, I'm not even at the bottom of my page of notes right now. So when they start, so they're going around doing their thing. Rarity is the first one to point out how the thing isn't fun, and it's AJ who pushes back. I just wanted to point that out because it's interesting that the episode makes both Rainbow Dash and Rarity the two who are like, okay, this is stupid, where it's Applejack and Fluttershy are like, no, let's put up with this, because Applejack is that kind of considerate, Fluttershy is that kind of, oh, let's be compassionate. Rarity is, okay, this is just ridiculous, and Rainbow Dash is bored. So that actually lines up perfectly, and I'm totally with that. This then leads to each of them trying to individually reach out to Maud and get along with her. So the first thing that happens is Maud puts a dish towel over her back when she's hanging out with Rarity. You ever that kid or adult who likes something and everyone else thinks you're totally freaking weird for liking that, and it just leads to a whole awkward scene? And you don't really know what to say or how to express yourself because, I mean, the dish rag looks pretty cool. I'm with it. Just me? It's okay if it's just me. But I've been there. More than once. More than once. So, again, even though it's portrayed as a gag, you still kind of see where Maud's coming from with the dish rag, with the washcloth. And Rarity even tries to run with it. Credit for Rarity. And I'm pretty sure if Rarity can make an awesome clothing set based on stuff in a hotel room, I'm pretty sure she could turn dish rags into something cool. But no, it's okay. I'll just do this. This then leads to Fluttershy's bit. Oh, by the way, you'll notice that then Pinkie Pie's like, yeah, we're going to make the rock candy. So then Fluttershy's bit. I have to admit, I thought the bit with the spider was actually adorable. Red eyes, dripping fangs. But no, I'm actually nice. Hi. Here's a flower. He's a nice little spider. He'll die quickly. But anywho, and then Pinkie's like, yay! I can't wait to make these rock candy. This then leads to the bit with Twilight, where Twilight is like, oh, you like reading? Well, I only like reading my own stuff. Actually, I've known people who only like to read the stuff that they themselves have written. And I'm going to admit something that's going to sound horrible, but I actually like rereading my books every now and again. Not all that often, just now and again. Because, I don't know. Anyways, but then she decides to share her poetry, which I wrote down for your enjoyment. Rock, you are a rock. Gray, you are gray, like a rock, which you are. Rock. Zoom in. They're all about rocks. Which is actually going to be a gag in the future. First of all, that got a chuckle out of me. But second of all, I figured it out, guys. She's a Vogon. Then Applejack is like, okay, let's make some apple juice or what cider or whatever the heck they're making, and she's the slight zoom in, I love that, and she's smashed an apple. Okay, we'll just make it. How does it taste? It tastes like apples. They've been consistently portraying Maud up until this point. I'm building to a point here. I don't know if you've noticed yet. So, nice bit of world building. I've actually already talked about this, but to reiterate, Maud flings a boulder completely over the horizon and causes a shockwave, which causes a small wave of water. Now, I point that, obviously that's being exaggerated for a comedic effect, but it is portrayed in lore that she does fling a boulder that well. So, again, they really are. There is a magical level of strength to Earth Ponies, really being demonstrated in universe, in character, in lore, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the second point this has really been emphasized. Well, mine's not that good, Earth Tyrant, we all know that. Yeah, she can actually do that, and this does actually make sense kind of here, and will be coming up later, and will be coming up even more later, so I'm just pointing out the world building while we're here. Although, question, who do you think's stronger, Maud or Big Mac? Because both of them are portrayed as strong even for Earth ponies. Actually, Pinky is portrayed as this strong too, but I'll get to that in a minute, and in a future episode. Anywho, so, this is when the ponies all get together, and Pinkie Pie is like, hey! Yeah, I would say Big Mac probably has more stamina. I actually agree with that. Maud probably has a lot more, I can't remember what it's called. There's two types of muscle usage, and one is being able to use it for a long period of time, and the other is being able to use a lot of it, much more of it very quickly, and it deals with how you exercise and build them. And I can't remember which is which, but anyways, the point is, Maud would be the Fong, and Big Mac would be the, just enduring kind of a thing. So I agree with that completely. So Pinkie Pie's like, yeah, let's go make things, let's do it. And this then leads to all of the others hesitating and talking around things, and finally they, of course, naturally pick Applejack to be the one to point out the truth. Some ponies don't click the way the others do. Now that's true. That is a true thing. Some people just don't click. Let me ask you something. You ever have friends who don't like each other? Because I have my entire frickin' life. You may have heard me say this before, but I'm the guy who basically gets along with everybody. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to that, but they are exactly that. Exceptions. You know what my clique was back in high school? All of them. I would just move from one to the next, because I got along with everybody. And it has been a constant source of aggravation my whole life about how much my friends don't like each other. And that has caused many issues over the years. So the idea of Pinkie Pie being so deflated over the fact that her friends don't get along with her friend, completely feel her on that one. And of course, once again, Pinkie Pie has 1 HP, which is a concept I've talked about many times before. It is so obvious the way that it just kind of... Oh. I mean, yeah, her hair literally deflates, but the way she says, oh, is what really sells that for me. Yeah. That... Been there. And once again, very in character for Pinkie Pie. Yeah, she is a glass cannon. She is perfectly fine until she takes a hit to her emotional stability. We've talked about this. That came up in her previous episode, the one with Weird Al Yankovic. The moment anything tries to hurt that 1 HP of defense she has, she just falls apart. Funnily enough, Rainbow Dash has a similar problem. Different thing, but it's still the 1 HP barrier problem. So, Pinkie Pie makes a giant pile of rocks, because she's super strong. And she makes this whole obstacle course with an applesauce tunnel, first of all, ooh. Then a pile of nice clothes, which is cool. They even glitter. Then the books pile. Whose books are those? Then the Critter Time Poker, that got a chuckle. Then a thing of cupcakes, and then a race, and then a rock slide. Now you'll notice they did something rather subtle here. She shows off all the pieces of the obstacle course, and most of her friends are just going, huh? But when she shows off the rock slide, there's a brief reaction shot of Maud, where she actually raises her eyebrows. Barely, but she does. Did you catch that? I used to watch Double Dare, too. I used to love that show. And that kind of caught my interest, because that is not the first time they've showed that she's a Vulcan. I know I've already said that, but I'm just showing my work here, that they really did bother to portray her as someone who is there. She's not boring, she's not dull, she just expresses herself differently, right? So, Pinkie Pie then gets stuck and in danger. This is the only complaint I have in this whole episode, because the others take way too long to react to Pinkie Pie being stuck. Of course, they had to for the sake of the episode, but, whatever. This then leads to Maud. So let's just skip over that. Let's focus on the positive to counteract that whole emphasizing the negative. So that's dumb. But then Maud rushes out, races through at super speed, because of course she's super fast, just like her sister is. And she demolishes the boulder and smashes the rock effortlessly. And then she raises her tone slightly. What were you thinking? Again, like a Vulcan would. I really like Maud, if it's not obvious. And I have another reason why, though. It's not just the fact that she's an awesome character and well presented. I have another reason. Yeah, she even hugs Pinkie Pie, and she's not a very physical person to begin with. So then we get to the thing where they're like, okay, let's figure out how to deal with this. And Twilight teleports them to the rock farm. I assume? I don't know how else they would have gotten there first. They took a freaking train. Although, anyways, Twilight teleports in the rock flare. Now, what's really cool is what happens then on the train ride. Maud says something that really stuck with me. Thank you for coming with me. I have to ship out soon, and I'm glad to be able to spend as much time with you as I can. She says that in a very flat tone, because she says everything in a very flat tone. And then she once again hugs Pinkie. Then, immediately following that, the main five give this big heartwarming speech with the big heartwarming speech music playing behind them, like you do. And Maud's response is, sure, with more energy and enthusiasm than she has verbally shown the entire episode. You caught that, right? It is the most... And then everyone else is just like, huh? It is Pinkie who has to point out, oh my god, I've never seen her that enthusiastic. And that's true, because we haven't either. This is the final reason I really like Maud. Because that was me. I've actually talked about this before, but I don't talk about it that often because, well, I don't like to talk about my history that much. But, whatever. I used to not know how to express myself. I would feel, but it wouldn't show. I would care, but nobody would know. It didn't come out here. Now you're probably thinking, Laura, you're probably one of the most expressive people I've seen ever. How could you possibly say that? Practice. 30 years of practice have taught me how to express myself. I practice every day when I get on front of that camera right there. This is something I have gotten very good at, I'd like to think. But I didn't used to be like this. Even up into high school range, I still was having issues with actually showing how I felt. It was all very subdued and very not there. Now, this is also part of the reason why very few people became close friends of mine when I was younger. And I guess that's still true to this day, but whatever, right? You know, only a few people got me to the point where they understood that when I said, sure, that was very enthusiastic from me. And you see now why I look at Maud and I identify with her so hard. Because I can picture that. And by picture, I mean remember that. And again, they nail the presentation. It would have been easy for them to screw this up, as I pointed out earlier, but they really do portray someone who just doesn't express themselves. Yeah, exactly, SA2K. Mom knew me. Sis knows me better than anyone on the entire planet. And she's the one who can always pick through. Because I've learned a pattern for expressing myself. So I can't lie to my sister at all. One time we were playing a bluffing card game at Gen Con, back when we used to go to those. And I could not bluff her to save my life. Every single time she immediately saw through me. Because the only way I ever learned how to bluff was to be the same way I learned how to express anything else I do. So the pattern's still there. And she knows how to see through that pattern immediately to whatever I'm actually thinking and feeling. So she would catch me 100% of the time. I'm not a good liar. This is one of the reasons, I've said that many times. One of the reasons why I'm not a good liar is because I never really learned that skill, if you know what I mean. I only learned how to do this. Nowadays, it's just kind of a thing that I do all the time. You know, it's always this program that's running. It's actually funny because if you'd see me off camera around other people, I'm the exact same. Everything you're seeing here, this is how I talk to other people in real life. I don't put on a mask. Well, you know what I mean. I don't put on airs. I don't play a character. When no one else is around, all of that goes away, and all you'd see is a Vulcan. Because I don't need to when no one else is around. So I don't. Anyways, forgive me for talking about myself. I do apologize, but for this reason and many others, this is one of the reasons why I really like Maud as a character. And I really like this episode. I'm going to give this purple, by the way. Yeah, exactly. Darth Tyra understands. Thank you. It is exhausting expressing yourself. It's one of those reasons why I don't like to hang out with friends for too long. Because I enjoy their company, and I enjoy hanging out with them, and I enjoy playing games or watching movies or whatever. But after a while, I just get tired. Maybe that's just because I'm old. I don't know. But, you know, sometimes after a while, it's just like, okay. You need a period of time to be able to just... But I have one last thing to talk about right at the end. So, there's the necklaces right at the end. And all of them bring their necklaces. We only see some of them very briefly. Rarity's is pretty, obviously. Fluttershy's is designed like little flowers, which is awesome. And then we have the big old lightning bolt, which you'll notice Rainbow Dash is, you know, barely dragging along the ground. Maud, of course, completely doesn't flinch because super strength. And finally, she gets the one from Pinkie Pie, and Pinkie Pie's like, "Hey," and it's like, "Woo!" And as they're doing it, she opens the chest, and Twilight's like, "You don't eat them?" "No, I don't like rock candy, but I do love Pinkie Pie." That was sweet. And of course, this is a very good demonstration of how much she cares. I mean, you could say the saving her from the rocks thing, but just about anybody would save even a random stranger if they were capable of saving them from danger like that. But holding on to a gift just because you love them, that's a demonstration of care right there. Because you don't have to do that. You will never be called on that. There's no consequence for not doing it. It's returning the shopping cart, right? That shows more than anything else the entire episode how much Maud really does care. And of course, Pinkie eats hers immediately because that's how she does it. See you around, Chloe. So yeah, no, I'm sorry. If anybody would like to argue against me, feel free, but I would like to give this one purple status. It's a fascinating episode with some good world building and an excellent presentation of character dynamic and being different and expressing yourself differently with a cool character that I love, that I personally identify with. You know, how long have we been talking? This has been a 42-minute streamination. I think this might be our longest yet. Let me pull up the spreadsheet here. For reference, the other purples we've had so far are Return of Harmony. That's the introduction of Discord. Lunar Eclipsed, which just... Magical Mystery Cure, which... I wasn't sure about that one until I watched it, and they did a lot of good stuff with that. And Hurricane Fluttershy, which, yeah. So yeah, I think I will codify this as purple. Appropriate music is appropriate. Now, I'm going to go ahead and chop it off. Which one's amending fences? Hang on. Which one's this one? Oh, that one. Well, that's season 5, so we'll get there later. So, I'm going to chop off the local recording.